Did you know that Max Verstappen almost lost his lead in the sprint qualifying at the Miami GP, despite being the reigning champion? With technical issues, strategic errors, and an important personal debut, Verstappen's future in Miami was more uncertain than ever. Before we continue, let me know your opinion in the comments. Do you think Verstappen can regain the lead in this championship? What consequences will this day have for Verstappen and Red Bull in their fight for the title? Today we're going to analyze the controversial sprint qualifying for the 2025 Miami GP and how Max Verstappen, despite his efforts, failed to shine as usual. Max Verstappen arrived at the 2025 Miami Grand Prix with a mix of emotions and expectations. This circuit, which has always been a challenge for both drivers and teams, not only tested his skills, but also his ability to adapt to new conditions. Miami is not an easy track. Its combination of technical corners and long straights offers a constant battle between speed and control, demanding a perfect balance of aerodynamics and car setup. This year, the revamped sprint format added further pressure to the event, limiting practice time and, therefore, opportunities to optimally tune the cars. Red Bull, in this context, saw the race as a crucial opportunity to gain an advantage over rivals such as McLaren and Mercedes, who have shown significant progress since the start of the season. Expectations for Verstappen were high. The driver was in the thick of the championship fight, and any mistake could have significant repercussions on the overall standings. However, Max arrived in Miami with a unique emotional backdrop. Hours before his trip to Florida, Verstappen became a father for the first time. Although he assured in previous interviews that this event would not affect his concentration or focus during the race weekend, it was undeniable that the emotional burden of becoming a father could influence his pre-race routine. Despite his statements, sports analysts and experts began to speculate about whether Verstappen's trip, preparations for his daughter's arrival, and lack of complete rest before the event could have had an impact on his on-track performance. In the world of Formula One, where concentration and preparation are key elements, even the smallest details can make the difference between a victory and a disappointment. Thus, what seemed like a celebratory personal event could have affected his competitive performance in unexpected ways. In this context, the pressure on Verstappen was not only sporting, but also emotional. As the teams prepared for the technical challenge of Miami, Verstappen had to find a way to balance his personal life with his responsibility as one of the championship's most successful and highly anticipated drivers. Despite the external distractions, however, Max seemed to maintain his focus on the track, as demonstrated during the early stages of sprint qualifying, where, despite some challenges, he managed to position himself among the fastest drivers. However, Verstappen's weekend wouldn't be easy, and his performance in sprint qualifying quickly showed that things wouldn't be as straightforward as in previous editions of this event. Tensions began to build, and with them, the question of whether Verstappen would be able to maintain his dominance, not only on the track but also in his more personal and emotional context. Now that we have a clear understanding of the context in which Verstappen arrived at this event, it's time to delve into the details of what happened in sprint qualifying. The race in Miami was not only marked by on-track incidents, but also by strategic decisions and technical limitations that presented Red Bull and Verstappen with several unexpected challenges. How did these issues affect their performance, and what lessons can we draw from all this for the rest of the season? Let's delve into what happened at each stage of qualifying and how close Verstappen came to maintaining the lead against fierce competition from teams like McLaren. The start of Max Verstappen's sprint qualifying in Miami was marked by a series of incidents that not only generated controversy, but also increased tension in an already pressure-packed environment. From the opening minutes of the session, Verstappen was involved in a confrontation with Lance Stroll, which quickly became the center of attention. During the latter part of the first phase, SQ1, Verstappen was driving slowly on the racing line, forcing Stroll to perform an evasive maneuver to avoid a collision. This action did not go unnoticed, and the Canadian driver did not hesitate to use the team radio to describe the maneuver as dangerous, generating a wave of commentary and criticism in the specialized media. Tensions between drivers are common in Formula One, but this incident brought with it an additional burden, as it involved Verstappen, who has always been known for his aggression and determination on the track. Despite the criticism, Verstappen downplayed the incident, stating that it was a simple misunderstanding and that it was all part of the fight for space in such a tight qualifying session. This incident was not the only one. Sprint qualifying continued with more difficulties for Verstappen, who not only had issues with Stroll but also affected his teammate, Yuki Tsunoda. During the same phase, Verstappen obstructed Tsunoda, resulting in the Japanese driver being unable to advance to the next phase of qualifying, finishing in 18th place. This second incident only increased the controversy, as many saw a lack of consideration for his teammate and questioned the ethics of Verstappen's handling of the qualifying session. Rumors quickly began to circulate, with some even suggesting that Verstappen had adopted a more aggressive stance to secure his position, regardless of the knock-on effects on his teammates. Despite the negative comments, Verstappen managed to advance to the second phase with a competitive time, proving that, despite the incidents, he was still a strong contender. However, the damage to his image had already been done in certain sectors of the paddock and among the most critical fans. What seemed like a qualifying session in which Verstappen should shine began to turn into a day filled with difficulties. As rumors about his driving style and relationship with his teammates spread, the pressure mounted. Many began to wonder if Verstappen had lost control of his approach, or if he had simply reached a point in his career where internal and external tensions were beginning to influence his performance more. On the other hand, Verstappen's rivals were quick to react. Drivers such as George Russell and Oscar Piastri commented on the ethics of qualifying maneuvers, suggesting that the fight for pole position was not just about speed, but also about unusual tactics. This situation further inflamed the already intriguing paddock. Despite Verstappen's defense of his actions, the debate over the ethics of blocking and obstructing maneuvers in qualifying continued to be a topic of conversation among analysts and journalists. With all these incidents, the atmosphere in the team and on the track was far from ideal. The pressure on Verstappen came not only from his own mistakes, but also from the constant media attention and comments from his competitors. What began as an expectation-filled sprint qualifying for Verstappen ended as a series of incidents that not only left him feeling like he had missed an opportunity to shine, but also created uncertainty about his ability to handle both the technical and personal challenges on his path to the championship title. As qualifying progressed, the Dutchman found himself caught between his desire to maintain control on the track and the criticism coming his way from all sides, both inside and outside the team. With all this in mind, it was clear that Verstappen would face a series of additional difficulties in the second phase of qualifying. How would he manage to overcome these internal and external tensions? Would he be able to regain the pace needed to fight for the podium in the following stages, or would incidents and criticism stand in his way? The answers to these questions were becoming increasingly uncertain, and the hours following the sprint would be crucial to understanding how all this would affect his approach and Red Bull's strategy. As Miami's sprint qualifying progressed, Red Bull's strategic decisions and the technical limitations of the RB21 began to play a pivotal role in Verstappen's performance. In SQ2, the Milton Keynes team opted for a strategy that, at first glance, seemed conservative but intended to ensure Verstappen had fresh, competitive tires for the final phase of qualifying SQ3. They decided to prioritize the use of medium tires, hoping to save the soft tires for the decisive phase and maximize their performance in optimal conditions. However, this strategy didn't go as planned, as Verstappen was unable to find the necessary balance in his car to make the most of those medium tires. During the qualifying lap, Verstappen experienced a lack of synchronization in the tire warm-up, an issue he himself would later describe as unpredictable. This lack of consistency in tire performance created a sense of frustration for both the driver and the Red Bull engineers, who saw a carefully crafted strategy crumble before their eyes. The time lost during that phase limited Verstappen's chances in SQ3, where expectations of improving his time were high. As qualifying progressed, the team faced new difficulties. In SQ3, when Verstappen was on soft tires, the RB21's lack of aerodynamic balance became even more apparent. Despite improving his time to 1 minute and 26.482 seconds, which was enough to put him in fourth place, the gap to the frontrunners was clear. Max failed to take pole position, an expectation that always surrounds a champion like him. Beaten by Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris, Verstappen found himself in a position where it seemed the RB21 wasn't showing the dominance he's accustomed to. Beyond the lack of pace, minor inconsistencies in the line, especially in the chicanes, added further frustration to an already difficult weekend for the driver. In particular, the car's balance under high downforce conditions was one of the car's main limitations, which failed to remain competitive in the final part of sprint qualifying. The technical updates introduced by Red Bull to improve performance in Miami, specifically the floor modifications to the RB21, appear to have great potential in pre-event simulator runs. Engineers were confident that these changes would increase downforce and improve efficiency in medium-radius corners, an area where the car had shown weakness in the early races of the season. However, the results on track were not as expected. High temperatures, exceeding 34 degrees Celsius, affected the operation of the new modifications, causing the car to behave erratically in certain areas of the circuit. The roll issues were especially noticeable in slower sections, such as the turn 14 to 16 complex, where Verstappen experienced significant understeer, losing valuable time in that section of the track. Although these updates seemed like a significant improvement on paper, the team acknowledged that there was still work to be done. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner was quick to admit in a press conference that the new design's operating window was narrower than anticipated, forcing engineers to make additional adjustments ahead of the upcoming races. This created a sense of urgency within the team, which now needed to make quick decisions to address these issues before they became a liability for the rest of the season. For his part, Verstappen, despite struggling with the car's difficulties and changing conditions, maintained a positive attitude, albeit self-consciously aware that something wasn't working as it should. In his first interview after qualifying, Max expressed both optimism and frustration. He acknowledged that the car had obvious potential, but also admitted that he couldn't find the right balance to fully exploit it. He spoke of the car's unpredictability, which led him to make mistakes on the line during the decisive phase of sprint qualifying. Verstappen himself stated that the weekend had been difficult, despite being such a special personal moment for him due to the birth of his daughter. However, despite the difficulties, he didn't lose sight of the importance of continuing to fight and seeking solutions in the immediate future. The team, for its part, didn't seem overly concerned about fourth place, as they remained confident in Verstappen's potential and his ability to extract the best from the car, even in suboptimal circumstances. However, the clear message was that Red Bull would need to quickly adapt and improve the RB21 if they wanted to remain competitive with the advances made by rival teams like McLaren, which were already demonstrating superior performance in some key aspects of the car's performance. Despite the setbacks, Verstappen's experience and responsiveness remained crucial elements for the team, but the car's technical improvement would be essential if Red Bull wanted to remain the dominant team in the championship fight. With all these factors in play, the question that remained was, how would Red Bull respond in the upcoming races? Would they be able to fine-tune the RB21 to optimize performance and give Verstappen the necessary tools to regain his advantage, or would this situation mark the beginning of a more difficult season than expected? Strategic decisions and technical adjustments in the coming weeks will be decisive in determining the future of Verstappen and Red Bull in the fight for the title. The consequences of the mistakes made by Verstappen and his team in sprint qualifying at the 2025 Miami GP could have a much greater impact than initially apparent. While fourth place in the sprint qualifying isn't a catastrophe in terms of results, in a championship as tightly contested as Formula One, every point and every position counts. Red Bull, having been the dominant team in recent years and with Verstappen as its main driver, has high expectations both internally and externally. The mere thought of Verstappen being unable to fight for pole position at a circuit where he has traditionally been competitive could cast doubt on his ability to maintain the pace against his rivals. This, of course, not only affects team morale but can also influence the perception of rivals, who now see a golden opportunity to overtake Red Bull in the championship fight. The situation becomes even more critical when looking at the performance of other teams, especially McLaren, which has shown significant progress in its rear suspensions and adaptability to circuits like Miami. Sprint qualifying made it clear that McLaren and Mercedes are closer than ever to Red Bull, jeopardizing not only Verstappen's supremacy but also Red Bull's historic advantage in terms of technology and performance. If the team fails to fine-tune its setups and the RB21 continues to exhibit balance and performance issues, Verstappen could find himself in a much tougher fight for the championship. The consequences of these errors would be amplified if McLaren or Mercedes fail to maximize their performance in the upcoming races, potentially leading to a loss of the advantage Red Bull has enjoyed for so long. In addition to the on-track implications, the errors in Miami could also have psychological and strategic repercussions within Red Bull. The relationship between Verstappen and his team has historically been seen as a fundamental pillar of the team's success, but when things aren't going well, as we saw with the tensions in sprint qualifying, questions can arise about the internal dynamics. Is Verstappen making the right decisions in high-pressure situations? Is the team making the right decisions in terms of strategy and technical upgrades? The perception that Red Bull isn't providing the right car for Verstappen could affect the driver's morale, who, while typically displaying great mental strength, is not immune to difficulties. If tensions continue to escalate, the relationship between driver and team could deteriorate, leading to more impulsive decisions or even a possible change in the near future if results don't improve. In the long term, the consequences of this weekend in Miami could extend beyond a simple sprint qualifying position. Red Bull, by failing to adapt its upgrades correctly and by making mistakes in crucial stages of qualifying, faces a significant challenge, maintaining its leading position. The upcoming Grands Prix, especially those on circuits with different characteristics, will further test the team's ability to react and adjust its strategy. Every mistake, every erroneous strategic decision could be the difference between winning the championship or losing it to the growing competition. McLaren and Mercedes, increasingly competitive, will not hesitate to seize any opportunity that Red Bull misses, putting even more pressure on the team to correct its mistakes quickly. In terms of the individual battle between Verstappen and the other drivers, this situation could also have psychological repercussions. Verstappen, who has been accustomed to almost absolute dominance in recent seasons, now faces a much fiercer level of competition. This could lead him to question his own limits and his ability to maintain pace, especially if he continues to face frustrating situations like the one he experienced in Miami. The perception of being vulnerable on track could make his rivals, such as Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, or even Charles Leclerc, more motivated to push him, knowing there's no longer an undisputed leader on the grid. Verstappen's expectations are so high that any mistake, no matter how small, can trigger a series of doubts, both within and outside his team, affecting his confidence and mental state in the upcoming races. It's crucial that Verstappen and Red Bull find a quick and effective solution to these issues if they want to stay in contention for the championship. The 2025 season is far from over, but the mistakes made in Miami could have lasting repercussions if not addressed quickly and with the necessary focus. The pressure is on them to adapt to a new level of competition, as rival teams have improved significantly. Recent F1 history has shown us that even the smallest slip-up can have massive consequences, and this season promises to be one of the most closely contested in the sport's history. With all this in mind, the key for Red Bull and Verstappen will be how they recover from this setback. Will they be able to adjust their strategies and take advantage of the potential of their upgrades? Will we see a reaction from Verstappen in the following races that will return him to the front of the grid? Or, conversely, will the wear and tear of the situation affect both the team and the driver, leaving them in an awkward position in the championship? The answers to these questions will be determined in the coming weeks and will be crucial in determining whether Verstappen and Red Bull can continue to dominate or if this will be the beginning of a new era of fierce competition. Looking ahead, expectations for Verstappen and Red Bull are at a crucial crossroads. While sprint qualifying in Miami made it clear that the road to the 2025 championship will not be easy, the coming weeks will play a pivotal role in defining the season. With competition from McLaren and Mercedes proving increasingly strong, Red Bull cannot afford any more setbacks. The pressure on the team and Verstappen will be much greater, as they will not only have to improve the performance of the RB21 but also adjust their strategies to adapt to the changing circumstances of each race. In upcoming Grands Prix, especially those with more complex circuit characteristics or unpredictable weather conditions, Red Bull will need to find a way to squeeze every aspect of the car and offer Verstappen the necessary tools to maintain his leading status. If they fail to do so, they could see their rivals take advantage, jeopardizing not only Verstappen's supremacy, but also that of the entire team in the championship fight. For his part, Verstappen will have to quickly adapt to this new reality, where the competition is no longer as distant as it once was. Over the past few seasons, Max has been almost unstoppable, dominating most races and displaying a consistency that seemed unbreakable. However, the situation in Miami demonstrated that even the greatest can face technical and strategic difficulties that make it difficult for them to maintain that advantage. The question that arises is how Verstappen will respond to this new level of pressure. Will he be able to remain calm and leverage his vast experience to continue winning races, or will he be affected by the difficulties the team is experiencing? The answer to that question will be essential, as mental focus and resilience will be as important as the car's technical performance in this championship. Furthermore, Red Bull will need to find quick and effective solutions to the balance and aerodynamic issues that have been evident in Miami. The RB21's floor modifications, which initially appeared to be a significant improvement, didn't perform as expected in the high-heat, high-downforce environment. As the Milton Keynes-based team analyzes and refines these updates, it will be crucial for them to fine-tune the car's parameters to improve stability and performance on all track types. Red Bull's ability to make quick adjustments and find effective solutions will be key to keeping Verstappen in the championship fight. The introduction of new technical updates could be the deciding factor that allows the team to regain its dominance, or, if not managed correctly, it could mean more trouble down the road. What happens in the upcoming events will be decisive not only for the 2025 championship, but also for the morale and motivation of Verstappen and the entire team. If Red Bull manages to correct the technical flaws and Verstappen regains his rhythm, the team could once again establish itself as the title favorite. However, if the pressure continues to mount and mistakes persist, the situation could change drastically. The nature of Formula One, with its constant evolution in terms of technology and strategy, means that any small change can have enormous long-term repercussions. Therefore, the upcoming races will not only be a test of speed, but a test of resilience for Verstappen and Red Bull. As for Verstappen, what happens in the coming months could determine whether the champion remains as dominant as in recent seasons or whether, on the contrary, 2025 marks the beginning of a more competitive cycle in Formula One. Rivals are getting closer, and the opportunities for mistakes are diminishing. However, it is in these moments of pressure that true champions show their greatness. Verstappen's ability to adapt to changing circumstances, remain calm under pressure, and maximize every opportunity will be essential in determining whether he can remain at the top of Formula One or whether the competition will finally catch up. All signs point to the 2025 season being one of the most exciting and hotly contested in recent Formula One history, with Verstappen and Red Bull facing new challenges that will test not only their ability to adapt, but also their ability to learn from mistakes and overcome adversity. Expectations for the future are high, but the path to the title has never been so uncertain. The upcoming races will be key to determining whether Verstappen can continue his dominance or whether the competition finally manages to break Red Bull's hegemony.